Welcome to English Podcast, your place to enjoy captivating stories and real conversations.
Listen anytime, anywhere, and boost your confidence step by step.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Have you ever tried something completely new, something you never thought you'd do? Maybe something a bit daring? Well, our story today is about just that. It's about a man named Arthur, and his rather unusual attempt at a new hobby.
Arthur lived in a small, quiet town nestled beside a rather large, rather imposing mountain. Imposing, by the way, means impressive or daunting, almost a little scary. He worked as a librarian, a job that suited his quiet and bookish nature perfectly.
He loved the quiet rustle of pages, the smell of old paper, and the hushed atmosphere of the library. His days were predictable, calm, and, if he was honest, a little dull. He longed for something more, something exciting.
And then, one sunny Saturday morning, as he was browsing through a magazine not in the library, but at a local cafe, sipping his latte, he stumbled upon an article. It was about rock climbing. Stumbled upon means he found it unexpectedly.
The photographs were breathtaking. Climbers clinging to sheer rock faces, high above the world, muscles straining, faces determined. The mountain in the background looked remarkably like the one looming over his own town.
He felt a strange pull, a yearning he couldn't quite explain. A yearning is a strong desire or longing for something. Could he, Arthur, the quiet librarian, ever do something like that?
The idea seemed absurd, outlandish even. Outlandish means bizarre, strange, or unusual. He'd always been more comfortable with a good book than physical exertion. But the seed was planted.
That afternoon, Arthur found himself at the local outdoor equipment store, surrounded by ropes, carabiners, and harnesses. He felt completely out of place, like a penguin in a desert.
So, after that disastrous first attempt at baking a cake, it resembled a brick more than a Victoria sponge. I decided I needed professional help. I signed up for a beginner's baking class. Flour power, I thought, here I come.
A Victoria sponge, by the way, is a classic British cake with jam and cream filling. And flour power is a fun expression about baking. So, he was feeling optimistic, despite his initial failure, which is great. It's important to keep trying.
The first class was all about bread. The instructor, a wonderfully patient woman named Mrs. Higgins, showed us how to knead dough. Kneading, you know, is that pushing and folding motion to make the bread stretchy and elastic. It was harder than it looked.
I can imagine. Kneading takes practice. It's not just about strength, but also technique. Did he manage to get it right?
My first loaf was, well, let's just say it was denser than a doorstop. But Mrs. Higgins was encouraging. She said it was a common mistake for beginners to not knead enough. She told me to keep at it, which means to continue practicing.
That's good advice. Persistence is key when learning something new. Did he follow her advice and bake another loaf?
I did. I went home and, inspired by Mrs. Higgins's words, tried again. This time, I kneaded and kneaded until my arms ached. And you know what? The second loaf, while not perfect, was actually edible. It wasn't dense like a brick, and it even had a nice, slightly crusty exterior. I felt a surge of pride.
That's wonderful. It's such a rewarding feeling when you see improvement after putting in the effort. A surge of pride means a sudden strong feeling of being proud.
I brought my slightly less dense loaf to the next class. Mrs. Higgins tasted it and smiled. Much better, she said. You're getting the hang of it. To get the hang of something means to start to understand and be able to do it. It was a small victory, but it felt huge.
It's important to celebrate those small victories. They're proof that you're making progress. And they motivate you to keep going. So, what happened next in his baking journey?
So, to recap what's happened so far in our story, Amelia, our main character, decided to try pottery. It seemed relaxing, but it's proving much harder than she expected. Her first few attempts were, well, disastrous. The clay wouldn't cooperate, and her pots kept collapsing. It's been a frustrating experience.
Exactly. She's feeling pretty discouraged, right? Discouraged means feeling a loss of hope or confidence. It's that feeling you get when you try something new and it doesn't go as planned. Amelia's starting to think pottery might not be for her after all.
But she's also pretty determined. She's not someone to give up easily. Remember, she signed up for a 6-week class, so she's invested both time and money into this. She's feeling the pressure to create something asterisk, even if it's just one decent pot.
Right, and during the last class, she saw another student effortlessly create a beautiful vase. This made Amelia feel even more inadequate. Inadequate means not good enough or skilled enough. She's comparing herself to others and feeling like she falls short. It's a common feeling, but it can be quite demotivating.
It is, and this week, she almost didn't go back to class. She was tempted to just stay home and watch TV, but she knew that wouldn't really make her feel better. So, she pushed herself to go, even though she was dreading it. Dreading means feeling anxious or fearful about something that is going to happen.
So she's going back to class even though she is anticipating a negative experience. That takes a certain kind of courage, right?
Absolutely. And as she walks into the studio, the teacher, Mr. Henderson, notices her hesitant demeanor. Hesitant means unsure or reluctant. He sees that she's on the verge of giving up. He's a kind and observant teacher.
And Mr. Henderson decides to intervene, right? He senses Amelia needs some encouragement and personalized guidance. He realizes that sometimes, a little bit of individual attention can make all the difference. He remembers his own early struggles with pottery.
Yes, he calls her over to his own wheel, and this is where things start to change for Amelia. He's about to share a secret tip he's learned over the years. Stay tuned to find out what happens next. So, after weeks of tangled yarn and needles clicking in frustration, a breakthrough. I managed to knit a small, wobbly square. It was far from perfect, with holes and uneven edges, but it was mine. I felt a surge of pride. I was finally making progress. It wasn't pretty, but it was a start.
That's wonderful. That feeling of accomplishment, that's what it's all about. Remember, wobbly means unsteady or shaky. So, your square wasn't perfectly straight or firm.
Exactly. It looked like it might collapse at any moment. But I was determined. I kept practicing, following the online tutorials. I learned to cast on more stitches, which means to create the initial loops of yarn on the needle. I also figured out how to cast off, or finish the knitting, securing the stitches so they don't unravel.
Those are key terms in knitting. And unravel is a useful word in general. It means to unwind or fall apart, like a knitted piece, but also figuratively, like a plan that unravels when things go wrong.
Right. And speaking of plans, I had a new one, to knit a scarf. It seemed ambitious, but I was motivated. I chose a soft, blue yarn and started with a simple pattern. This time, the knitting went much smoother. The stitches were more even, and I didn't need to constantly refer to the instructions.
It's amazing how quickly you can improve with practice. It sounds like you were really getting the hang of it. Getting the hang of it means becoming proficient or comfortable with a new skill.
Definitely. There were still moments of frustration, of course. Occasionally, I'd drop a stitch, which means accidentally letting a loop slip off the needle. But I learned how to fix those mistakes, which felt like another victory. The feeling of frustration, that feeling of annoyance or impatience, started to happen less often. It was being replaced by a quiet satisfaction.
That's a great feeling. And, occasionally, means sometimes, but not regularly. So, you didn't drop stitches all the time, just every now and then.
Exactly. And, every now and then, is another way to say occasionally. So, with fewer dropped stitches, and fewer moments of complete confusion, my blue scarf began to take shape. Row by row, it grew longer. I started carrying my knitting everywhere on the bus, during my lunch break, even while watching TV.
That's dedication. It becomes almost meditative, doesn't it? The repetitive motion can be very calming.
Absolutely. And it's productive too. I was actually creating something tangible with my own hands. I was no longer just a beginner. I felt like a genuine knitter. It wasn't just a hobby anymore, it was becoming a part of me.
That's beautiful. And tangible means something you can touch or feel, something real and concrete. So, you weren't just learning a skill, you were creating a tangible object, a scarf.
Precisely. And I was getting compliments too. People would ask me about my scarf, admiring the color and the neat stitches. It was a real boost to my confidence. A boost means something that helps you feel better or more positive.
That's so rewarding. It's always nice to have your hard work recognized and appreciated. So, you went from tangled yarn and frustration to creating something beautiful and receiving compliments. What a journey.
It truly was. And the best part? I knew this was just the beginning. I had so many more projects in mind. I started imagining sweaters, blankets, maybe even socks one day. The possibilities seemed endless.
Endless possibilities. That's the magic of a new hobby, isn't it? It opens up a whole new world of creativity and skill development.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the story so far. Remember, recap means to summarize. Mark, our main character, wanted to try something new, to break out of his routine. He felt a bit stuck in a rut, which means feeling bored and uninspired.
Exactly. He decided on baking, inspired by his grandmother's delicious cakes. He was a complete novice meaning beginner, and his first attempts were, well, disastrous. His cake was as hard as a rock, and the cookies were burnt to a crisp. He felt really discouraged, almost ready to give up.
But then he remembered his grandmother's advice. Patience is key, and practice makes perfect. So, he persevered. Persevere is a great word. It means to continue trying even when things are difficult. He watched online tutorials, he experimented with different recipes, he really put in the effort.
And that effort paid off. His cakes started to rise properly, they were no longer flat and dense. His cookies were golden brown, and he even started experimenting with different flavors and decorations. He was building his repertoire of baking skills, which means the range of things he could do. Remember that word, repertoire.
He went from a baking novice to someone who could create beautiful and delicious treats. He even started sharing his creations with friends and family, who were amazed by his progress. He'd overcome his initial failures and found a new passion, a new hobby that brought him joy and satisfaction. Not only that, but he gained confidence. He learned that even if you start out badly, you can achieve great things with perseverance and a positive attitude.
His culinary adventures. Culinary refers to cooking became a regular part of his life. He even started a little online blog to share his recipes and experiences. He discovered that trying something new, even if it's challenging at first, can be incredibly rewarding. And that's the heart of our story.
He found a way to escape that feeling of being stuck in a rut. Remember that phrase? It's a common feeling, but Mark's story shows us that we can always find new ways to challenge ourselves and learn new things. And who knows, maybe even discover a hidden talent along the way, like Mark did with baking.
And let's not forget, he also discovered the simple pleasure of creating something beautiful and delicious with his own hands. That's something anyone can appreciate. He began with rock-hard cakes and now he has a whole repertoire of recipes. It's quite a journey, isn't it?
Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.